Well, hello, folks. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Welcome to our first Google Hangout live show in quite a while, what I hope will be a growing number of live shows. I'm going to have a very special guest with us today, and I'm just waiting for her to accept the invitation and come on in. I do invite you to use the chat if you'd like to. And we are recording this live, not expecting many people to be here because no one knew about it. But we will, I will put it up later so you'll be able to see it through the rest of the day as well. So if you're live, you can certainly enter in your questions and we will answer them. If you're not live, well, I hope you enjoy the presentation just the same. I'm just waiting for Lori to pop on in here. And I'm not sure how I'll know she's here, but all righty then. And I appreciate you being here. And I hope that you'll enjoy this presentation. And we're going to go ahead and just wait a second for Lori to get in here. I'll be right back. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Hello,
Jeff?
Lori. Are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Excellent. I can hear you perfectly. Thanks
Oh,
for being
great.
with me today.
Oh gosh, you're so welcome. Sorry about that.
No worries. It's sometimes the technology fools with us, and it's hard to get things squared away. But we're very glad to have you. I know that I'm in Clearwater, Florida, and you're over in the UK, correct?
I am, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's quite a move you made all the way over there.
Yeah, I hear some feedback like you talking.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm not sure what the issue on that is.
Do I need to turn something off?
I don't think so. I'm not, I'll turn down my volume a little bit. Does that help at all? You still getting the feedback?
Yeah.
Well, everything's pretty clear on my end. I don't know what to tell you over there on your end. I apologize for that.
Um, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you just fine.
All right. I'll just have to deal with it because I don't know where it's coming from. Anyways,
Does that help it at all?
yeah,
Or are you,
perfect.
okay, that's much better?
Yeah, well, no, here it is. It's back again. It's all right. I'll just deal with it. I'll get used to it.
Okay, okay. Well, Lori, and I know that you don't want to show your picture, your camera, and that's fine. That's not a problem at all. But if you would, I wanted you to come on and talk a little bit about the female perspective on big time Christianity. And I know you have a wide experience in Christianity. And if you will, just give the viewers kind of an idea of your background in Christianity. The whole kind of just a thumbnail sketch of how your experience was within what I call big time Christianity.
Right. Okay. What, like in 30 seconds or less?
Well, just take your time. Take as long as you need.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Well, I'll just start with my family because I came from a Christian family.
Were you a
Just in
PK?
name. No, I wasn't a PK, but my family is originally from Texas. So the religion that they brought with them, because they left Texas during the, what do you call it, the Dust Bowl. So in the 30s, they ended up in Los Angeles, and they were all Church of Christ people.
Oh, so that's
So
very hardcore.
very hardcore. And even though my dad wasn't really like a religious guy, he still held to all of those belief systems.
Now, this was the no music Church of Christ, no instrument Church of Christ.
No music, very harsh, I mean, if you think about it, back in those days in Texas, I mean, life was hard. So
Absolutely.
religion was hard. And I remember I must have been like 21 or 22, and I went to visit my dad. He lived up in Redding at the time. And my granddad, who was like 100 years old, was there, right? And he was so mean, but he was a big time Church of Christer. And first thing he says to me is, "Girl, have you been baptized yet?" And I said, "No, I haven't." So he says, "Well, you get your butt down there and find yourself a Church of Christ and get yourself baptized, or you be going to hell."
Oh, wow. That is hardcore.
So that scared me, and I went down and I got baptized, found a local Church of Christ, went in. As soon as they gave the call to get baptized, I mean, I had no experience with them at all. And they pull back this big white curtain, and wouldn't you know, there was a baptismal pool right behind the pulpit. So I got dunked right then and there, and that was my introduction into the first time I got born again.
Did you feel any change when you got baptized? I mean, I know a lot of people talk about great experiences when they come up out of the water. How about you? Did you feel anything dramatic?
I felt euphoric.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I felt this overwhelming sense of peace and love, even though it wasn't there in the church. But it was a fabulous experience. And so as soon as you're baptized, they want to indoctrinate you. So the assistant pastor came to the house, and I am just such an imperfect person, and I'm so aware of that. And I just it kind of a funny instance with this guy. He came over and he was, telling me all about the Bible and what I needed to do. And I was really nervous about it around him, and he was nearly blind. And I'm sitting there
Oh, no.
playing with a rubber band, and I notice I'm looking down and I notice the rubber band's gone. And so I look up, and wouldn't you know, I shot the the blind pastor right in the eye.
And he never saw it coming, right?
He didn't know it was me, and I thought, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to hell for sure now."
Oh, no. But you didn't stay in the Church of Christ. You wound up in the charismatic type realms, right?
Well, I did, because I just didn't every time I went, I didn't have any money. I was a young mother, and every time they passed the basket, the usher would just give me the dirtiest looks because I wasn't putting any money in. So I just had to leave. And I spent a couple of years just not going to church. And we moved from Orange County, California, down to San Diego, and met some people that were part of Calvary Chapel.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so I went there, and it was the coolest church. I mean, all the guys were surfers and nice looking, and you could wear sandals and shorts to church. So I was very comfortable with that environment.
Now, did you get the hairy eyeball during the offering at Calvary Chapel?
No, because, I mean, in fact, I mean, I was going to, can I say names? Is that all right?
If whatever you are comfortable with,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm cool with that. I was actually going to Brian Broderson's Calvary Chapel, who was Chuck Smith's son-in-law. So it was, we were like straight from Big Calvary, as they call it. So they had the
And for
offering.
our viewers, Chuck Smith, for those that don't know, is the fellow that founded Calvary Chapel. And even though Calvary Chapel doesn't want to admit it, they probably are one of the, if not the largest, one of the close to largest of the charismatic denominations, even though they never claimed to be a denomination.
Right. And it's really interesting because Calvary Chapel, even though it's charismatic, it was kind of like known inside that like Chuck Smith wasn't really supportive of it, but because his wife was. So it was kind of a weird thing where it just depended if you were more on Chuck's side or his wife's side, whether or not it was charismatic or not.
So, Lori, let me get this straight. You're telling me that Calvary Chapel, if Chuck would have had his way, there wouldn't have been anybody raising their hands, speaking in tongues, singing in the spirit, but his wife is the one that was able to allow that to go on?
That's my opinion. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, they had like what you asked about the offering box. It was just always at the back of the church. So if you felt so inclined to give money, they weren't really big on begging for money. It wasn't until later on when I got involved with the whole Greg Laurie Harvest Crusade that all the begging really started. So
Yeah, Greg Laurie he knows how to take an offering, doesn't he?
he certainly does. So
So explain to the people, if you would, Lori, just kind of the difference, and you have a little bit, but what's the difference between being in Calvary Chapel and being in Church of Christ?
oh my goodness. First of all, you can sing with music. And you know, it's interesting because I have an uncle, he's passed away now. Back in the 70s, he was a Church of Christ pastor. And he went out on the fields in the hills somewhere and he was praying and he had a download from the Holy Spirit. So he began speaking in tongues and manifesting all of these like gifts. So he had to leave. He had to leave Church of Christ.
I call
So
that getting the left foot of fellowship.
exactly. And so it was just Calvary Chapel was just such a kickback kind of church. I mean, I loved it. And I was, I was young and stupid, really.
So you're a young mother. You come out of a place that's very, very rigorous, very, very hardcore, very much anti-fun, and all of a sudden you find yourself, in the beach, on the beach in SoCal, hanging out with, handsome surfer guys and cute surfer girls, and wearing your Hawaiian shirts and your flip-flops to church, and you're under the spout where the glory comes out. You're getting your Holy Ghost goosebumps, and you're just really enjoying things, right?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it at first,
So it must have really, coming from where you came, coming to Calvary Chapel must have really felt like a breath of fresh air. And you probably felt like for a significant amount of time that you had found it, quote unquote, right?
Absolutely. I absolutely loved it. And I went to all the women's retreats, and that's where, I had a little bit of problems, but it was
You want to tell
lovely.
us what you mean by that?
Well, all right. Let's see. I went to one specific retreat and Chuck Smith's wife was there.
And what's her name?
Oh, what is her name?
That doesn't matter. Sorry.
I can't, sorry. It's been this is going back, gosh, 25, 30 years.
I have a hard problem with squirrel, and sorry about that. So
all right. That's all right. So, so I go to this retreat, and up until that time, I mean, if you're like after a Calvary service, you could stay after and they'd have like the afterglow, you'd
absolutely
turn down the lights. And the other day you were doing that video on worship and I had to laugh because you were doing the whole Stevie Wonder thing.
Exactly. That's the way it happens, isn't it? It's real.
Absolutely. And I used to love that. But anyways,
Yep.
I could not manifest speaking in tongues for the life of me.
Ever?
Well, this is really bad, and I'm confessing this to you,
Oh,
right?
you faked it, didn't you?
I faked it. Us women are good at that.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
I'm at this women's retreat, and Kay, her name's Kay,
There we go.
and Kay Smith is leading us all into getting our prayer language, right?
Which Chuck would
So
not have approved of.
no, and she used to joke about it, and so I'm trying. I'm up there, and I'm like the only one that's not doing it, and they were just saying, "Just say the first thing that came to your mind," and all I could get was like, blah, 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 blah.
You got it, sister. Hang on to it. You know,
So,
usually you got somebody on one side of you saying, hang on, hang on. You got someone on the other side saying, let go, let go. And you don't know what to do.
do you know what? Yep, that's exactly how it went, basically. Just, let your mind go, and so I just faked it. I'll be honest with you. I just faked it, and I never did get it. I mean, I had friends, this is like skipping a bit, but I had friends that were in Assembly of God.
Which was what I was.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I was
And
in Assemblies of God evangelist for many, many moons.
yeah, I mean, it's a nice church, nice. I mean, I always looked at the people, because
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know. Well, I'll get into that later, but I used to go with them to theirs, and they said, "You should leave Calvary Chapel. It's so legalistic, and come and have some freedom, and we've got the spirit there." So I went, and, we're getting into the mood, and you could literally feel this. I used to call it a weight. It was just a pressure that would come down, and I would resist it because it just didn't feel right. It never felt right to me. And I'm looking around, and people are falling down, and they're wiggling like bacon in the aisle. And I'm trying not to laugh.
Right.
And I'm just thinking, "What the hell? Get up." you know. And I felt bad. I always felt bad. I thought, "Oh, I'm just not spiritual enough. I just can't get into this." And if someone, you put the hand on their forehead and go down, and I just never let them touch me. "Don't touch me. Nope. I just don't feel right about it yet."
That's smart that you understood that. Now, you'd had some experience in a couple different churches, and I don't know if you can remember this or not, but whatever your feeling was, and of course from all of your experience, what would you say the breakdown was in attendance between women and men on any given meeting, percentage wise?
What, like on a regular church service, or like one of these Afterglow Holy Spirit?
Like a regular church service.
Oh, it was mostly women.
Exactly. I was an evangelist for 20 years, and I spent, I would go for a week or two from church to church to church. And it always was probably at least 60-40, sometimes even more like 70-30, 80-20 women to men. I'm glad that you saw it that way too, because that's the way I always saw it. And that brings what I want to talk to you about here in a few minutes even more into bear. And let me show you something on the screen. I don't know if I think you'll be able to see this, but I wanted to show you. I need to find it first. Sorry, give me just 1 second, because I had to send you an email and I got off what I wanted to get on there. Okay,
Oh,
so let me show you this on the screen, and I want you to tell me if you remember the first time that you ever read something like this. Can you see it on the screen?
oh, yeah.
What was the first? Do you remember the first time you ever read, "Let your women keep silent in the churches. It's not permitted on them to speak. They're under obedience, as saith the law. If they want to learn anything, let them ask our husbands at home. Is it a shame? It's a shame for women to speak in church." When was the first time you read that, Lori? And what did you think?
Pretty much straight on, because Chuck Smith really believed that.
No kidding.
Uh, pretty much, because I mean, I assume that because it was Calvary Chapel's very Pauline,
Right.
you know, and you were not allowed to have authority over a man. There were, no, in fact, I had a friend who was basically an unofficial pastor, but she couldn't take the position. And she used to walk around and say, "If I only had a, I
Yeah.
could be a pastor."
So, Lori, what
And
did you think about that when you saw that verse and knew about K. Smith, how did you reconcile that in your mind? And how did all of your sisters, when, you know, y'all are making up 60, 70% of every meeting, why did you guys accept it? And why didn't anybody question it?
Mind control.
Really, just that simple.
Oh my goodness. And I mean, right. A couple of times I was called a Jezebel, which I think is funny, but I've always been a kind of a rebellious person. And I went to a pastor that was a friend of mine because I ended up leaving the Calvary, the first Calvary, and going to a smaller Calvary. And I had a friend there who was a pastor, and I went to him and I said, "You have to explain this to me because, right, I was born with a brain, and I think I'm a pretty smart person, and I understand scripture, and I mean, Jeff, if I could not make a Jehovah Witness run from my doorstep in tears, I failed. I mean, I was an avid studier and I was a thumper. And every time there was an evangelical team that went out, I was with them. You know, I knew my stuff. So I said to him, I don't understand. Am I supposed to just sit back and play stupid? Tell me. And he didn't have an answer for me. He just said, well, you know, it's because Eve ate the apple and you know, women are
And right
prone
on time, I just put that up on the screen
oh,
there for you. Verse 14, Adam was not deceived, but Eve was deceived. So you're telling me
absolutely.
that, because I was so much into myself, I was so into, you know, my own ego back in those days that I didn't really, you know, I knew that there was a lot of women there and I knew they gave a lot of money, but I never really thought too much about this. So it's so fascinating to me that the ladies know it, they understand it, they realize that they're saying learn with all subjection. I don't allow a woman to teach. Did Kay Smith ever teach, by the way?
Only to other women.
Oh, she didn't teach in church
No. Oh God, no.
because we don't want her to usurp authority over the man, but be in silence.
Well, and what kind of you have to understand Calvary Chapels was huge,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
you know, and what kind of an example will that have set? I mean, my goodness, you let Kay out there and the whole women folk of Calvary Chapel is going to rebel.
So even though she kind of had power, she didn't really have power, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. It was just, you know, women over women, but never a woman over a man.
In this one here, neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. I won't belabor this, but if we went into the Greek, this is very, very clearly saying that the woman was created for the sexual pleasure of the man. And women are so loose sexually that they have to have the power of a man on their head, or they'll be off having sex with angels all the time. Have you ever seen that one?
Well, I have, and that one was especially painful for me because of things that were going on in my personal life and things that I discovered in the church, and which pretty much led me out of Calvary Chapel.
And where did you go when you got out of Calvary Chapel? Were you done with big time religion then, or where'd you go?
Um, no, because of the chaos that I found was Calvary Chapel, I had some friends that were Messianic Jews.
Oh, that's right. I remember you saying something to me on an email about what'd you call it? Messy Jew or
Messy, they call it messy Judaism.
messy for short for messianic. And it's, you know, funny. I actually, when I left the Assemblies of God, I went into, you know, the Sabbath keeping type of Pentecostals and ended up preaching a lot of meetings at some messianic Jewish churches. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like jumping from the pen right into barbed wire.
Now, was it the same thing there as far as women can't say anything, can't do anything?
No, not really. It kind of depended where you went because some, I mean, this is how broad the structure is. Like in San Diego,
Pardon the pun.
there was in San Diego, there was a huge congregation and, you know, it was heavily Jewish and the Gentiles, the Goyim, were allowed in as long as you keep your mouth shut.
Oh no.
You were second class. So
But
what would
if you were a girl goyim, it was even worse, right?
oh my goodness, yeah.
My goodness.
So um what happened was a lot of like smaller home fellowships would start up, and I was mainly involved in those where the
Gotcha.
women were allowed to speak and have more say.
Mhm.
And
Now,
it
Lori,
was
I'm sorry.
no, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Before we get too far down the road from this, it boggles my mind because there's all throughout Christian churches, and again, my job was to go from church to church to church. So I met a ton of people, and churches are filled with women just like you, smart, independent, able to make their own way in the world, people that know the scripture up one side and down the other. And these women, it just boggles my mind. You're telling me that most of them have seen the Pauline scriptures, they know the Pauline scriptures, and they just choose to ignore them.
Well, pretty much, yeah, because it's all fear-based. It's a fear-based religion, isn't it?
It
Right?
is. It is.
Because if you don't submit unto your own husband,
Which is another Pauline scripture.
what is that going to mean for your spiritual walk? You
But
know,
it didn't bother them that God and Paul would say that they're second class citizens.
no, because it's all mind control. If you're, I mean, like when you talk a lot about the trance, right?
Right.
I think it's a trance
It
with these
is.
people that are because, I used to speak to people, and because I was I mean I had quite a lot of labels because I mean I wasn't like overtly rebellious, but I just didn't go along with some of the stuff, so I was off. I
Right.
had I had friends that would come up to me and say, "Oh, Lori, let me check your doctrine."
Lori, didn't some of these ladies ever sit around in the afterglow having a little tea and some Oreos and say, but Jesus was really nice to women, and St. Augustine called Mary Magdalene the apostle to the apostles, and James said there was at least two women pastors. Didn't any of these ladies ever connect the dots and say what's going on?
Um, yeah, I mean, but there was always an explanation. There was always an explanation because, like, uh, if I had like other rebellious friends who would say, "Yeah, but what about Deborah?" you know, well, what about her? That was the Old Testament. We're under the
Yeah.
New Testament, Jeff. Come on, the
Lori,
Old Testament.
this is just it. I'm so frustrated by this because number one, you ladies, I mean the ladies that are still in the Christian church, they they own the power of the purse strings. If the ladies said, "Listen, we're not giving one more dime until you address this Pauline doctrine, and until we work through this and iron it out," the whole of Christianity, from Joel Osteen to Fifth Baptist Church next door, would grind to a halt. Is there anything that I can do or people like me can do to try to get these ladies to say, you people are smart, you're talented, you're powerful, use your power, use your strength, either leave the place or flex your muscles and say, hey, look, we're not going any further till we address this. Can it be done? And if it can, how in the world could I do it, Laurie?
I don't know.
Oh my. So you
I
really
don't.
think it's a lost cause?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, you've got to also consider the fact that when I let's see, I first started homeschooling in 1990,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it has grown by leaps and bounds by then, right?
Now, were you in
Since then,
homeschool or were you homeschooling your kids?
I was homeschooling my kids.
Okay.
So that's like a movement within a movement. So you have huge amounts of women that are in Christian churches that are now homeschooling. And let me tell you, that is one lot of bondage. And more so, is it even more strict that you have your hierarchy in the home where I mean, we had a joke. I used to call my husband the hoe. He was the head of household.
Oh
And,
my.
and that was my kind of joke.
I make a joke too. I mean, the women should be in the kitchen making a sandwich. What are you doing out here?
Well,
And that's the way they believe it. I mean, why aren't you in the kitchen making a sandwich? And why aren't you just giggling and nodding? It's terrible. And I just wish there was a way to break through to these ladies. And it's one of my greatest frustrations, because obviously, the world as a whole, and I'm sure we'll probably get into this, the world as a whole, we really have for at least 2,000 years suppressed the feminine, the sacred feminine. We've suppressed the feminine essence and the feminine energy. And look at the place that it's got us as a society. Now, I'm not advocating we go overboard towards the feminine, but we need to bring up our feminine selves. Men need to get in touch with their feminine side. We need to have women like yourself step up and start speaking out and taking places of leadership, because we have to get to the balance between masculine and feminine, both as people of spirituality and as a society and as a planet, if we ever really hope to get ourselves back in balance and get ourselves straightened away and start going and growing to our greatest potential. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I would absolutely agree. And in fact, sorry, I lost my thought. Um, I pretty much gave up on any type of like not I don't even like the word Christian, but listening to your videos.
Right.
And
I don't claim Christianity either. I'm not a Christian. If somebody, I don't like to give myself a label, but if
me
somebody
either.
pushes me into a corner, I'll say I'm a follower of the teachings of the Christ.
Well, I started reading the New Testament that you did yesterday.
Oh, did you
And
get one?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
And when
Thank
you
you.
start you're welcome. Thank you, really, because when you read it, it just flows so much nicer, because I have to, and it's so weird because now when I read things like that, my first reaction was, "Oh gosh, please don't lay any crap on me."
Yeah.
I just can't cope with that anymore. I don't, oh, hell and brimstone and all of that. But it was really easy to read, and I really bonded with it, and I can do it now. And what I was going to say is, oh, it was just when you were talking about like the women in the churches. I know what I was going to say. Part of the problem is, at Calvary Chapel they had a saying, basically, if you disagreed with them, there's the door. They didn't care if you left.
Yeah, I almost married a girl that was Calvary, and I was a whatever the equivalent of a male Jezebel is. That was me.
Well, it's good to be a Jezebel.
It is. We need that should be on a t-shirt. It's good to be a Jezebel.
Well, I tell you what, when I was going through all this transition, and it was before I left and went to the Messianic Judaism side, I was having like weird things happening in my house, and there were things that were banging in the night. And I hope you don't mention this, but it's a huge part of my story. And that guy I was married to had a severe pornography addiction.
Oh, that's terrible.
And yeah, and the things I found out within like church was devastating. And
Lori, being an evangelist, you'd have the meeting, and afterwards you'd pray for people. They'd line up down the middle. I'm sure you've seen it. And 6 out of 10 of the guys wanted to pray about pornography, right? They
yeah,
wanted to pray about pornography. They were bound up with pornography. And I remember, this is a funny story, and don't lose your train of thought, but this is kind of a funny story. I used to get like words of knowledge, and I would, say, this person over here, you're having a problem with an eating disorder. This person has, a lower back issue. And I would say it over the microphone. I went up to this one guy and I took the microphone away, and I was just going to whisper. He goes, "No, no, no. I want you to say my problem on the mic." I'm like, "Brother, let me just switch." He goes, "No, no, no, say it." I'm like, "Okay, you're struggling with internet pornography." and it's pandemic within the church.
well, not just that, but this is before the internet, right? So I told my friend I'm going to go to the pastor because I can't deal with it anymore, because friends would say it's not really sin, or it's not grounds for leaving him because it's just pictures, but they don't understand what goes on within the relationship. And I was told anything's legal in the marriage bed, you know?
Oh, I can
Okay.
just these bondages are crazy.
Yeah, so you can rape your wife and do all sorts of really, horrible things, and it's all legal because you're married. So I went to my friend and said, I've got a appointment set up with my pastor, and I'm going to go talk to him about it. And
This wasn't Chuck Smith. This was a
no, 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 no. Yeah,
messy Judy guy.
no, this was within Calvary.
Oh, okay.
This was still, sorry, I'm jumping around. This
No
is,
worries.
I was still in Calvary, a Calvary, and my friend said to me, she just said, "Look, Lori, I've got to tell you something. Please don't let it go past here." I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Well, it's it's interesting that you tell me this, because I just had my elder friend call me last night and say that the pastor has been turned in by his wife, saying that he's got a huge pornography problem."
Absolutely.
So,
It is absolutely pandemic. And I wonder if their attitudes towards women are second class citizens, women are subservient. That's probably feeds that pornography type of thing in a lot of ways.
oh my goodness. When I had, I'll just go back a little bit.
Okay.
I I mean, this had been going on for a long time, and
And
when
can
I
I
was
just say something? I mean, I know there's no excuse for pornography ever under any circumstance, but I mean, here's a guy, your husband, married to, an attractive, outgoing, a great girl. And so it's not, it's beyond just a sex thing. It's a real nasty addiction beyond even that. Cause obviously he didn't need to go to pictures to get with a pretty girl.
yeah, no, and I also want to make a distinction. It's not like a guy picking up a porno mag and looking at it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where Dr. Dobson, he wrote a book on it, and he was saying how when you have a porno addiction, your your brain produces chemicals, and they actually rechannel your brain. So your behavior changes, which is what I saw. So it's completely different,
I'm
right?
glad you said that because when somebody, lady or man, happens to take a look at something now and then, we're not trying to say that's
Yeah,
pornography addiction. We're talking about a real, true addiction that gets into
absolutely.
controlling your behavior, changing your behavior, and dominating your life. So please go ahead.
So when you're saying, does this influence how these church pastors look at women? Well, and I'll tell you this, sometimes I feel like Forrest Gump, because I have like this experience all over the place. And I think because of my personality, I don't have any trouble talking with people, of different denominations. I never thought, oh, I have the truth, and you're you're going to hell. And I met up with this woman. She was from a Southern Baptist church, right? And
Right.
we were talking, and I was referred to her by another friend to talk to, because I was really struggling with the whole, oh my gosh, what am I facing here? Because I'm trying to get help from my church, and the pastor's got an addiction as well. And in fact, when I went in for counseling, knowing this about him, and he didn't know I knew, he's like, well, Lori, yeah, that's kind of a nasty thing, but what about you? What kind of sin do you have? And so I'm thinking, I mean, I'm a homeschooling mom. I submit to my husband. I do everything I'm supposed to. I feed the poor, blah, blah, blah. And I'm racking my brain. What? But he's honing in on something, right? So what had happened was I started gaining weight, see? So I said, "Oh, I get it." So I look at him and go, "Oh, you mean because I'm fat, right?" Well,
Oh my.
yeah. So anyways, I took that information and talked to this lady that was in, I think she was in Tennessee. And it just so happened that she organized these secretive uh, women's retreats for pastors' wives who were dealing with their husband, pastors who were addicted to pornography. And she said it was booked full with waiting lists.
Doesn't surprise me a bit.
Right? So, so it was a difficult thing, to go to continue going to that church. And then I knew that I had some spiritual gifts like discernment. And I remember sitting in the back of the church, and this is before I knew this. And my friend was sitting there, who was let me check your doctrine all the time friend. And it was during worship, and the pastor came on and spoke, and the assistant pastor was there, and another guy, and it was always the guys in the front row waving their arms that were the guys that had these like secret issues. And I whispered to her and I said, the pastor, that guy, and that guy, there's something going on. They've got some type of like sexual thing happening. And I think it was because, when I was like 5 onward, I was sexually molested.
Oh, that's tragic. I'm sorry to hear
So,
that.
oh, well, I just believe I was targeted, whatever, because it never leaves you.
Yeah.
I attracted every pervert after that. So I would recognize that, sorry, in other people. And so I told her that, and she let in on me. You better knock that off. You're of the devil and blah, 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 blah.
Oh my.
So within a year, I found that out about the pastor. The assistant pastor was found out to be preying upon all of the married women that were going into him for help,
Yeah, I
having
knew that before you said it.
various affairs. And then the other guy, he wasn't a pastor or anything, but he just happened to be in my radar. And sure enough, he was found out to have some weird things going on.
Yeah.
So,
Lori, what is your advice for women that are in the church that are seeing the cracks but are afraid to leave? What's your advice to them?
listen to their intuition.
Absolutely. Great.
Learn to listen, to really hear your inner voice when it's saying, get out, get out.
Yeah. And there's so much riding on that, staying in that environment with all of those spiritual entities and attachments and the pressure. Sure, it's I've done it. I left my salary, my house, my car, my insurance, everything. But it took me a while to do it, and it's just so you just have to get out. You're right. There's really nothing else you can do. Get out, don't look back, and just go.
Because if you stay, and I have to say as well, I really admire you for doing that. That takes a lot of courage. And I've heard you talk about it before. If you get used to a certain lifestyle and you got a family and a wife, they get used to that. And, I've had to dump all of my possessions twice. So I know what that feels like. I came over to England with basically a suitcase after, being married nearly 20 years. So, and had to do it again. So I really respect that.
But you feel a whole lot better, don't you?
I'm free.
Absolutely. And
I
you
am
can't
free.
put a price on being free.
Absolutely. I used to go out evangeling, right? I lived in Oceanside, which is North
Yep.
San Diego County. And we used to go to the pier, and, because it's like right next to a military camp, Camp Pendleton,
Mm-hmm.
you get in a lot of really strange folks and a
I'll
lot of
bet.
different folks. So I'd be out on the pier, and I had a friend. We used to be like partners in crime, and we'd be out there witnessing and having a good time. And I used to meet shamans and witches and all sorts of different people. And I just thought it was fascinating to hear
Absolutely.
why are you into that? And so they'd be telling me, and we had to make sure it was like not getting close to a certain time, because lo and behold, this like rabid Baptist would show up with a big black Bible screaming and shouting. And I went up to him one time and I said, can I just have a word? And so he stopped his thing and said, what? And I said, can you go somewhere else? You're just really loud, and we're over here talking to these people about Jesus, and I can't hear myself think. Can you go down the street? And he starts yelling at me, how dare you stop me doing the work of the Lord? And
Yeah.
so,
Hey, I have
that,
to ask you, did you ever hand out the chick tracts?
oh my gosh, yes.
Those things were so horrible.
Well, do you know what? The rebels that we are, we made our own.
You made your own chick tracts?
We did. And
Wow. Was it like comic book style and everything?
no, we just had a piece of paper and we just told them what to do and where to
Oh,
go.
okay. Okay.
Because after a while it just got silly. And then I had this experience, my homeschooled children and I, at Halloween time, we would not touch any unclean thing. And we didn't celebrate Halloween. So when the kids came, instead of candy, we'd give them out chick tracts.
Oh no, you were hardcore. I remember that. I've done that myself. That's so
Oh,
terrible.
and I heard these I heard these two mothers just bad mouthing me, ripping me up and down, and I thought, all right, this isn't the way to go. So the next
No.
year, the next year we gave candy with the tracks.
There you go. At least they'll take the tract maybe, and it might make it to the street, and your front lawn won't be littered with chick tracts.
Well, that's how you get, because especially when you're a homeschooler, your whole goal is to produce godly offspring.
Right.
If your children do not grow up to be pastors, you have failed.
Yep.
And the thing is, I knew I was failing because my kids, they were just normal boys, and I just could not get them to conform. And we'd go to the homeschool groups, and my kids, they were like surfer skater kids. And, they used to think, oh, Mom, we don't want to go back. Those kids are just weird,
Yeah.
And my friend and I would go to the homeschool groups, and they'd all be wearing those denim tent dresses, no makeup
Oh
or
no.
whatever. And we'd go in wearing red lipstick. So we were the harlot heads.
You were definitely the Jezebels.
Well, and speaking of Jezebel, the first time I really got called a Jezebel and was told I had the Jezebel spirit was there was this Assembly of God guy. And because of the things that were going bump in the night in my house and scaring me to death, said, oh, you need to go talk to this guy. He will help deliver you from all this, what's going on. So we go over to his house, and he throws his Bible down, and he has like this big stack of paper, and he says, right, I want you to repeat after me. So he has me repeating all of these really bizarre Egyptian god names. They're names of Egyptian gods. I mean, who can pronounce them, right? So I was tripping all over the place. I don't know how to pronounce them. So then he says, right, after I get done, he says, right, well, let's go over the ones that you are possessed with.
Oh my.
And I'm like, huh? How do you figure that? Well, if you have trouble pronouncing them and you fumble over their name, it means that there's something inside of you that's telling me that that entity is within you.
I've heard a lot of stupid things, but that may be right up there near the top of the list.
Well, stupid is as stupid does. So
That's exactly right.
I remember I just said to him, look, coming from a Calvary Chapel perspective at the time, I mean, whether or not I was right or wrong, my conviction was I cannot be possessed by a demon. So you're full of it, and I'm not going to listen to another word. And he fought me on that. So I said, here, I'll just open up the Bible and show you. Think of somewhere out of Romans. And he screams at me, grabs my Bible, slams it shut, and says, you will not be reading from that. So I just said, well, you're full of it, in a not so nice way. And
Adios.
I walked out of his house.
Yeah. So where are you today, Lori, after all this big, long, very, very interesting journey? Where are you today in your spiritual life?
Um, I am, I wouldn't say I'm lost. And I used to use words like, I feel lost, I feel cursed, because nothing just seems to go, to go right. And I don't know where to turn. I mean, I can't go. Um, I don't feel comfortable praying anymore. And then now, listening to your videos, now I know why. And, I left in my email, I told you it was a rather descriptive thing that I felt, because I'm kind of angry. I'm kind of angry because it's one thing to feel like you've been sold a load of rubbish in the church, right?
Right.
And I found this out especially too because you discover the origins of Christmas and all of that, especially as a Messianic Jewish whatever.
Yep. Been
And
there,
so
done that. Our paths are very similar.
yeah, and so whatever. But then you find out that your lover, your betrothed, the one that you love, your husband, you know, is basically an energy sucking creep,
Oh, no.
So what do you do with that? So, and I mean, when we were in Messianic Judaism, we couldn't even say his name. You'd have to say like Yud Hey Vav Hey,
Right.
you know, and like I said in my email, I used to have the most incredible prayer times on my own. And it was, and I could feel him, the light, the love. And now I think, was that the Spirit of Christ bypassing all of that? Or
Could have
was it,
been.
or was I Archon food?
Could have been.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, only you can answer those questions. And that's part of this, the fun part and the interesting part and the challenging part of this walk that we're on now. And, I hear similar stories every day. Who do I pray to? How do I know? And it's a little bit tough sometimes to grow up and leverage your own spark of divinity within and learn how to, I always say, carry your own, hew your own rocks and carry your own water. And it is sometimes a bit of a struggle, but it's like you said, being out of that church and out of that place, you have that great feeling of freedom. And even though we have to do some work and some climbing, we do get to that place again where we feel even more free again as we learn and discover. But if anyone ever told you it's going to be easy, they lied. And you can certainly see that.
Well, I don't pray anymore. I haven't prayed in a long time. I talk to me. I have learned how to meditate, and I get in touch with my higher self, and I allow her to give me wisdom.
How does that
Because
feel?
fantastic. It has set me free. And the thing is,
Absolutely.
there was always this dichotomy I had with the scriptures, because one verse says, lean not on your own wisdom, or lean no, sorry.
Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding.
Right.
Acknowledge him in all your ways, he'll direct your paths, yada, yada, yada.
Yep. But then there's that other one that says, my people perish for
For
lack
lack of
of.
wisdom, yeah,
So
my
like,
people perish. Yep.
come on, which one is it? Can so I just threw them both out and just said,
You have to.
well, and I've had to do a lot of inner work over the last few years. And this is kind of funny, but the reason why I left Messianic Judaism, because when I landed over here, I married an English guy, and I knew him for a year. He seemed really great and all that. And when I got here, within 6 months, I realized he was a what do you call it? Psychopath with a drinking
Wow.
problem. And so I went to what I knew, and what I knew was the Torah and the laws. And I found a group near me, which seemed like a miracle, right? So I got in touch with them, and I was friends with a Messianic rabbi in Israel that I met in San Diego. So I was in touch with him, and he was really cool. But
Nice.
this little group that I was part of be started to get really weird. And it was mostly because some of the Islamic guys were converting to Messianic Judaism. And so they would bring over their baggage, like having more than one wife. So it became a kind of a thing in my little group of, hey, it's okay to have more than one wife. And so because I had left my second marriage, actually escaped. I was in a safe house for quite some time, and I needed protection. So what do? I needed to find a covering, right?
Right.
And
That's the
so
doctrine.
that's it. So I was started I started seeing or hearing all this stuff about, taking on a second wife, and it was kind of thrown past me a couple times. And I saw this guy's wife, they were applying the laws of Torah. And I mean, his wife, when she was menstruating, she couldn't sit on anything without having a pillow under her first. I mean, it just got into just all kinds of bizarre weirdness. So I confronted this guy in at a festival. Everyone's sitting there, and I just did my Jezebel thing. And I said, you just if you're telling me that it's okay to have more than one wife, then what you're telling me, and you're saying that Udevave condones this, then what you're telling me is everything that I know about him is false, because he must not know the heart of a woman. So with that, I'm outies. So I got up and left.
Yep. There you go.
So I have this tendency that, if it's BS, it's BS. Why do I want to
Absolutely.
myself anymore?
Did you happen to see that I did a video, and I do so many now that they all run together? I can't remember what day it was, but it was actually talking about praying to yourself. Did you happen to see that one?
Yeah, and I was excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that.
Yep. And it's so transformational when you realize that you are, I mean, you really, we like to have other people, it's nice to have someone to lean on. And I made a joke the other day, I've been searching for the one all my life, and I finally found him.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
But when you do realize that, it's like the Christ said, the comforter, I'm giving you the comforter. The comforter knows everything that the inexpressible ones know. And the comforter can tell you anything you need to know about anything. And it becomes very liberating to realize that I can just leverage within myself the spark of divinity within me and the comfort that's been provided. And it really is a very much of a independent, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps and actually grow yourself. It's like you're mentored directly by the divine. And to me, I find it extremely liberating. I find it extremely powerful. Do I find it kind of sort of lonely every now and then? Yeah.
It's
But
very lonely.
it is, and I
I have no
recognize that.
friends. I have no friends.
I have a lot of friends, but they're all in the UK,
Yeah.
Minnesota, California,
Exactly. Mine are all like imaginary internet friends. But the
and
thing I was just
and
going to say, when you're in the church, right? You're told you can't rely on your intuition. Your intuition can be leveraged by the devil. And then when you start to look at everything has labels. You've done some stuff on Napoleon Hill. I mean, incidentally, I was like really into Amway years and years and years
mhm.
ago, and I was reading all those self books. And you let some Calvary Chapel guy person in your house, it's of the devil, throw it out, it's of the devil. What are you reading this? So everything good that I see now then was of the devil. So how am I supposed to trust anything? Because I've got this mind control, which I still find myself sometimes um, restricted by, and I have to take a breath, think about it, ask myself, now where is that coming from? Because I'll tell you, right? I'll tell you a trigger. I'll be honest with you, okay? Scientology. I was just listening to you and Rex this morning,
Right?
right? I love that guy as well. And I was like, as soon as I hear it, I think, oh, because my dad was a Scientologist for
And
years.
you shared that with me.
Yeah, he was an auditor. So I got the message from Scientology, but not necessarily from Dianetics, because I was reading Dianetics way back. Have you ever heard of Bob Larson?
Of course, I've heard of Bob Larson.
Well, I started reading.
You're a demon. Shut up, demon.
I used to really be into that guy.
Me too.
And
Me too. Used to
and
love the radio show when he's talking to demons, and oh man.
casting them out because they were attacking the microphone. And
And he always had the great hair, the Bob Larson hair.
oh gosh. Well, he said Dianetics was of the devil, so I believed him.
Yeah.
And I broke, it's funny because I broke that love relationship because I went to one of his things in San Diego, and I thought, oh, he was just inviting everyone to see what he does and whatever. And so he's asking for money.
Yep.
So I wrote out my $10 check, and I look over to the couple next to me, and they were writing out a $5,000 check.
Woo.
And so I thought, oh, right, okay. You know, and he brought his 2 daughters over to the UK a couple of years ago, and they were in London casting out demons and saying that the whole of London was demon possessed.
So is he still around, Bob Larson?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my!
I mean,
If you want to, folks that are listening, if you want a good laugh, go on the internet and look up Bob Larson. This guy is crazy, but he's a money making machine.
yeah, he's very rich.
And it's very, very sad the things that people will accept. But
Well,
you
you
know,
know,
go
there was
ahead.
a
I'm sorry.
sorry, there's a messy guy, pastor. His name's Jacob. I can't remember his name, but he's kind of a, well, I won't say, but he's just kind of pompous and all of that. And he has a line that makes a lot of sense. He says, when people are hungry or when people are starving, they'll eat anything. And that's the truth. When you are hungry, when you've got guilt or you feel like you're being judged or your life hasn't been what you think it should, and someone comes along and feeds you just the right thing, you know, you'll suck it right up.
Absolutely.
I did. I
Absolutely.
did until I set my own self free.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we wind this up, let me, I had a great question I wanted to ask, and now I can't. Oh, from you have been a lot of the same places I've been. We've done a lot of the same things. And the one thing that I still struggle with is it worth it or is it not? I walk this tightrope and try to figure out if it's worth trying to do or not. Do you think that, doing what I do, specifically, do you think that it's worth trying to reach out to people that are still in the church with the message that we bring, or do I really need to just focus on those people that have already seen the cracks, that have already been burnt and are looking for answers after they've been shafted?
Both. And
Really,
I'll
you
tell you
think so?
why.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Because, you know, it's like, think of the 9/11 thing,
Right.
right? And if you go up to someone and you say 9/11 was an inside job, like when I first came over here, it was 2000 and it happened, and if someone actually said to me it was an inside job, I thought they were off the wall,
Did you go
demonic.
Jezebel on them?
Oh, well, I just didn't know. I just thought, I just walked past because I didn't get it. So I would hear it a lot and I would just blow it off and netter. And then there was a guy, it was just timing. See, sometimes it's just timing, because this
Right.
guy was running, an English guy. His son was killed in Iraq, and he wasn't happy about it because he understood the whole gameplay. So he decided to try to knock Tony Blair out of his seat, because over here in the UK, that Tony Blair, his constituency is where I was.
Okay.
So he could only be prime minister if he held the MP constituency in his place.
Right.
So if this guy could knock him out of the constituency, he couldn't be
PM.
right. So this guy was handing out in everyone's letterboxes. Was it We Are Change? One of those CDs that talked about blow by blow how the Twin Towers fell.
Right.
And I watched it and I was gobsmacked.
Yeah.
So that turned it on. And so then what happened was then you get into the whole numerology thing. And so then when London happened, 7/7, first thing I did was I looked at the numbers. Oh my gosh, 7/7, 7/7/7. So I think for people on a spiritual path, there's always little things that are poking at you, right? So
Yep.
you might feel like you're not reaching out to anybody, or maybe I should just focus this. Just throw it all out there. Throw everything you have at it, see what sticks. And if it's the right time for someone to get it, they will get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's but every now and then, maybe once every couple months, I'll get a letter. I was in the church, I came across you. It's really helped me. I'll get letters from, probably this year. This is already July, and I probably had 3 letters from theologians and pastors and people in Bible colleges saying, I wish I had the guts to tell the truth. You're right. So every now and then you do hit on somebody. So I think you're right. And I appreciate that encouragement. We're just going to keep going wall to wall, treetop tall. We're going to keep, letting her rip, locking and loading, damn the torpedoes, and just fire.
Well,
And,
that's a
and
good thing.
absolutely. And I understand what you say about Scientology. And again, I'm not a Scientologist. I'm not saying anybody should join Scientology. I'm just saying that within Dianetics, there is some useful spiritual technology that I pull out. So don't think that I'm trying to get you to sign a billion-year contract.
No. I totally understood where you were coming from. That's why I was glad that I listened to it, because there is a distinction between like the book Dianetics and science, the actual Scientology, the org,
Did you ever meet that Weasley, David Miscavige?
No.
Because I know he's from not from down your way, but he spends a lot of time out there at the Gold Base and all that stuff. So I thought maybe your dad had run into him.
He might have. I mean, he was at the Tustin one.
Right. That's yep.
I was labeled a suppressive person.
Yep.
So, but I mean,
why doesn't that surprise me, Laurie?
My dad would tell me these stories like of like, because I think it's in Essex where they have the big Scientology main church, and they're called gray bodies. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that term, gray bodies. I'm right here in Clearwater, so I'm here at the international headquarters.
Oh, right.
I mean, when I was in high school, they had first come here, and my buddy had an egg farm, and we would take all the rotten eggs in this big truck that had this canvas around it, and we'd pull up in front of the Fort Harrison Hotel. He would pull the string, the canvas would drop, and about 8 of us would pelt the Fort Harrison, anybody standing out with hundreds of rotten eggs. So I feel bad about that. But
well,
I go way back with Scientology.
it's serious stuff, because like with the gray bodies, those are, when they do the auditing and they do somehow they go out of body, and some of the people can't get back in.
So I've not heard that.
Yeah, so supposedly in Essex, there's people that wander around.
Essex, UK, right?
Yeah, I think it's Essex. It's their big thing. Just you could probably Google gray bodies, and
so you've got like zombies, Scientology zombies. They can't get back in their body.
Yeah, because like my dad would tell me.
Sounds like a great idea for a video.
My dad would tell me that like in the morning at their like meeting, they'd all be worshiping L. Ron Hubbard, because that's how he speaks to them. And he told me, Lori, they've got a lot of stuff on people. And this is like 19, because he showed up at my dad, right? He quit $1,000 a week job at McDonnell Douglas to earn $50 a week at Scientology being an auditor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. So, but
where does all that money go? David Miscavige.
Well, they would send him all over the country, and he said he said these people are paying 10, 15, twenty
Oh
thousand
yeah.
dollars for us, and that's what he was the auditor,
Yep.
right?
He
Because
must
he
have been
just
a good
happened.
one.
Well, he was, and you know when he walked out, when he walked out, they sued him for almost $20,000 because they went back and they had logged every auditing session he himself had took, charged him for it, calling it freeloader debt.
Oh my.
That's why I'm saying that's why Scientology.org has a bad feeling sense
Oh,
of
it's evil. It's absolutely
but
evil. It's another, mind control trap.
it is. And so and like for me, for like for the church to like sling mud at it, I just think, well, look at you. What are you doing? You're programming people to look at life in such a small way. And I tell you what, Jeff, it impacted my life so much. I believe that my growth was stunted for years and years because I was told to be submissive to my husband. I was a nice little wife. In fact, this is what shocked me. Um, the man I'm married to now, he's lovely, finally. Finally found a
Good for
nice
you.
one.
Congratulations.
But he told me when he first met me and we were courting that he looked at me as the American dream. Do you know why?
Why?
Because I met him at the doorstep looking all nice and pretty. I made him dinner. I was very thoughtful and all of that. And he says, "You're exactly what we see in the movies." And I thought, "Oh my God, well, I got to stop doing that then." And so now I'm just me. I am me, and I am in touch with my higher self, my true self, and I just cannot be bothered. I still have friends, and it's really heartbreaking. I have friends that are still doing the whole church thing that have cancer and all of that, and by nature I'm a certified health coach, and I'm into all sorts of like holistic things, and they're doing chemo and praying to God and all of that, and I'm like, you know, why don't you just look past that and get some healing? Otherwise, you're going to die.
Absolutely. And Lori, before we wrap up, tell us how
Sorry.
people can find out about uh, your work and where they can get help from you.
All right. Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm not into the whole website thing because I like to do one-on-one with people.
Yeah, I went to your website and I don't think it's working.
Yeah, it doesn't work, and I forgot to take it off.
Okay.
So, anyways, my Facebook business is called Curvy Chick Revolution
I saw that
because
on your I saw that somewhere and I went to the website and it didn't work.
all right. Well, I am just a big believer in women loving themselves wherever they are. And
Absolutely.
if you don't like the size of your curves, then, we could do something about it. But mainly it's for helping people to get their health back. Because I reversed my rheumatoid arthritis 15 years ago, reversed it. And which is, they say it can't be done. And I did it with nutrition. So,
So it's
um,
Curvy Chick Revolution on Facebook.
yeah, yeah. And it was pointed out to me that curvy dudes need some help too.
I
So,
was just going to ask you, what about if there's some curvy dude that needs some help?
yeah, I do that as well. So it's donation based because I just really want to make it available to
Yeah.
anybody
Let me
because
say something to that. I think that, and, I think that you and I are the only two spiritual practitioners that I know of personally that say donation basis. So I, I think that says something, whatever it is.
well, I hope so. And the thing is I can't. And I'm also like specializing in the ketogenic diet. You've probably heard me like babbling on about that
Hmm.
because with all the stress that I've had to endure over the last 10 years, and hitting menopause, I gained weight, couldn't get it off, I've tried. I mean, when I was studying to be a health coach, I studied 100 diets, nothing was working. and it's just been really frustrating, and it set up the whole thing. So I started doing the ketogenic diet, and I was listening to, I hope I'm not going on too long. I just want to
No, that's
mention,
about getting into ketosis, right? It's kind of like low
yeah,
carb, no carb.
yeah. But I also wanted to mention, when I was listening to you and Rex this morning, you were talking about, what can we do to like not allow a lot of the what do you call it?
All the
Like
parasites and funguses
yeah,
and stuff.
the foods, and not just that, but like the electrical stuff that's in the air, because
Right.
and I'll tell you what, get on a diet where you get rid of grains, dairy, sugar, because I tell you what, with the grains, it's not so much that people are saying, "Oh, you need to be on a gluten-free diet." You need to be on a glyphosate-free diet.
Right.
That stuff's getting into everything, and if your listeners don't know what that is, it's the toxicity that comes from when the farmers use Roundup,
Yep.
Monsanto. You cannot afford to eat GMO foods anymore. That includes wheat, rice, soy, corn. You just can't afford to do it. And with me, with the ketogenic diet, I also use the coconut oil, MCT-C8 oil, and it purges your brain. I am not kidding. My thinking is clearer, and that's, I think, also part of the mind control, because if you're
Oh,
dopey,
absolutely it is. And we were talking about that with Rex yesterday.
yeah, if you're dopey, it's because of this crap that's in your system, and you have to get it out. And I'm sorry, but you might love Twinkies, but Twinkies don't love you. And
Exactly right.
if you are serious about walking away and kind of not being stuck in the system, then you've got to clean up your diet, and you have to eliminate specifically that.
So Curvy Chick Revolution on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah,
And
I'm
if
on Twitter as well.
you're a curvy dude, you can also get help.
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Excellent. Okay, so it's a good place for change. If you don't like the size of your curves, Lori can help you get those curves to a more manageable level. Lori, it's great to talk with you. This is the reason I want to talk with you, because you've been through so much. You've had a lot of downs, but you keep rebounding, and you found yourself, and you're at a good place now where you're empowered, you're divine, you're sovereign, you're free. And if one person can do it, another person can do it. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your encouragement. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
It's my pleasure. And I just want to encourage you again, keep doing what you're doing, because, when someone like me watches you, we don't just watch one video, we binge watch, because we are that hungry, because we walked away from so much, and it's
Yep.
such a loss.
And I'm going to start doing something where probably on Sunday we'll have a live, kind of a get together type thing. And hopefully it'll grow to where we can have, maybe places around, maybe there's, because I actually have quite a few followers over in the UK, and hopefully we can get somebody, like maybe even you to, head up a little NCK get together over there on a regular basis, so people can actually, hang out with each other. So
Well, I'm near Durham, so if anyone wants to hang out, I'm open.
absolutely. So I appreciate it. I do appreciate your emails. Don't ever think they're too long and rambling. I love hearing from
Okay.
all the subscribers, and you especially. So thanks again. And if you have any ideas that you think would be good to share, feel free to get with me, and we'll have you on again. And I really appreciate you. And it's a great story. And what Lori did, you can do as well. And this is all about being excellent to yourself so you can be excellent to each other. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Thanks to Lori, and thanks to all of you for watching, and we'll see you several more times today. So take care.